Welcome back to the Tool Crib. Today we are going to be comparing two different multi-tools. On the left we have the Leatherman Wave Plus, which is in its third generation, now 21 years in production. And on the right is a brand new multi-tool that came out earlier in 2019. This is the Ozark Trail Multiforce. This one is available from Walmart. Now, I feel like this is a really good competition because they're both in the same size category. Both have the same kind of concept because the Ozark Trail steals a lot of its design cues from the Leatherman Wave. It's not necessarily ethical, but the Wave has been around for a long time, and at some point somebody was going to copy it. And obviously, Ozark Trail has done just that, or tried to anyway. There are some different nuanced differences that we'll go over. And if you've been following along with my channel, you'll know that I've been working on kind of a spreadsheet that will allow us to measure the quality and just how good each independent tool or implement is on these multi-tools and each function, so that we can quantify really how good a multi-tool is. So what we're going to do is we're going to give each of these functions a rating between 1 and 5, with the exception of two things: the knife blade, the main knife blade, and the screwdriver functionality. I think those pretty much go hand in hand with most multi-tools, and so they should be considered a little higher in value than some of the other implements, specifically the knife blades, I think. And I was going to do the same thing with the pliers, but I've broken the pliers up into different sections: needle nose, main pliers, wire cutting capability, hard wire cutting capability, and wire crimping capability. And so I don't feel it's necessary to necessarily go through and give those a 1 to 10 rating either. We're just going to keep it at 1 to 5. So hopefully this will work out well. Well, let's get started and put these two head to head, see how they come out. Our first item on the list is going to be the needle nose functionality of each of these multi-tools. And what I'm looking for here is to make sure that the tool itself, the pliers themselves, are really solid, that they have very little, if any, side-to-side movement. I want to make sure that they function well to do what we expect of needle nose pliers. On the left we have the Wave Plus. You can see that it is a very fine pointed needle nose, and on the right the Ozark Trail, which you can kind of tell that the grind profile on one side to the other of the plier head is a little off from one another. It's a little thicker on this side, a little thinner on this side. Also, it does not come down to the same kind of pinch point that the Leatherman Wave Plus does. I have that all the way closed, and there's a bit of a gap there. Whether or not that's going to affect its functionality, we're going to find out. So again, what I'm looking for is very little, if any, side-to-side movement, and both of these come through in flying colors. The Wave is a very solid multi-tool, does not have much flex in the pliers, and we get the same thing with the Ozark Trail. So I'm going to grade both of those for their needle nose functionality. The Wave is going to get just a touch higher. I like the way it comes down to a finer point for this size class. I also like the fit and finish a little bit better. They're both very solid, but we're going to give the Wave a 4, and we're going to give the Ozark Trail a 3. The next thing that we're looking at is the main pliers, and you can see on the Wave Plus it's a little shorter, and that's due to the fact that when they came out with third generation and they included the 154 CM replaceable cutters, they lost a little bit of the length of the pliers themselves. Also, a bit different profile than from one to the other. We get a little bit more surface area in the Multiforce than you do in the Wave, and that's going to be mostly due to the 154 CM replaceable cutters. Now, I tried these on different bolts. I was different lag bolts, and I used sizes between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. So 1/4, 5/16, 3/8, and 1/2 inch. And the Wave did really, really well on everything except for the largest one, which is a 1/2 inch or a 3/4 head bolt, 3/4 of an inch, where the Multiforce fared a little bit better. Now, when they're both on that 1/2 inch bolt, they're spread out very wide in the handle, and even for someone like me with larger hands, it was a lot to hold on to these because the spread angle of the handles is way out there. They both did pretty well in this department, and especially considering that they are standard duty size, both of them felt really solid. Both of them gripped very well. So we're going to rate both of these the same, and I think each one of these is going to get 4 for its main pliers functionality. Now we're talking about the wire cutters, and the wire cutting capability on the Wave, using those 154 cm replaceable cutters as opposed to the standard cutters on the Multiforce. I was really surprised to find out, well, not entirely surprised. I kind of expected this, because here's the key thing is, first of all, the cutters on the Multiforce are a little bit sharper. Also, they provide a lot more relief behind the cutters themselves. And so when you're using them to cut soft wire, and I tested these on ranges between 16 gauge wire up to 10 gauge wire, and the Multiforce just did an overall better job. It was a cleaner cut. Both of them were able to handle everything just fine, but the Multiforce fared a little better. So for the Wave Plus, we're going to be giving that a 3 for that functionality, and for the Multiforce, it's going to get a 4. The next thing that we're going to be looking at is the hardwire cutting capability of these two multi-tools. I tested these on just regular tie wire, and both of them performed really well on that. I also tested them on ground stakes, which are a little bit thicker than what you're going to find with your normal everyday coat hanger, wire coat hanger. Both of them fared really, really well in this test. Both of them with zero effort, no marks, no problem cutting through that type of wire. I will say that the Multiforce felt just a touch more comfortable when cutting through that heavier gauge wire. Part of that is due to its overall size, because the pliers themselves are just a touch thicker than that of the Wave. I think might have lended to it cutting through just I don't know, it just felt a little more comfortable using them. All in all, both of them fared really well on this, and both of these are going to get a 4 for their hardwire cutting capability. Now, neither one of these tools has the ability to do cable cutting, and what I mean by cable cutting is soft wire cable that is going to be probably 6 gauge and higher. Something like you're going to find on a Swiss tool has that capability. So we're going to move on to the wire crimping. Now, both of these have wire crimping functionality behind the pliers themselves. I will say that what I use as a baseline for a good wire crimper is going to be something like my Klein hybrid pliers. They are outstanding wire crimpers, and so that's what I would consider a 5. Now, the Wave struggled a little bit doing wire crimping functionality, and we were just doing this on just standard 14 gauge wire. So what will happen is the plastic coating is a little slippery for the crimpers behind the pliers. And so what I had to do with the Wave is I had to use the main pliers of the needle nose to create a flat spot first on the crimper, or on the crimp connector, and then I was able to crimp it, and it did a pretty good job. Where on the Multiforce, I didn't have to do have to take that additional step. I was just able to crimp them, and I think that the crimping functionality on the Multiforce came out a little bit better than that of the Wave. So I'm going to give the Multiforce a 4. It's not quite perfect, but it does an adequate job. Both of them did adequate job, but the Multiforce was a little easier to do. I felt it was just a little bit better. So it's going to get a 4, and the Wave is going to get a 3. The next feature that we're looking at is the wire stripping capability, and both of these tools are going to implement their wire stripping in the same implement. So on the Wave, it's going to be triangular, and on the Multiforce, it's going to be kind of a radius, and it's pretty small. So the Wave came out on top of this one. The Wave was able to do adequate wire stripping from very small wire up to 10 gauge is what I tested it to, but I know for a fact that the Wave will actually do 1 gauge higher. It'll actually strip 8 gauge pretty easily too. Beyond that, it's just too small to do 6 gauge and above. For the Multiforce, it did well on the lower gauges on 16 and 14 gauge, but it really struggled in 12 gauge, and it just was not big enough at all to do 10 gauge stranded wire. So the Wave is definitely a clear winner here. The Wave is going to get a 4. I'm going to give the Multiforce a 3, even though I'm tempted to bring it down one more to a 2, because I really think that in a wire stripping functionality, it should be able to handle up to and including 10 gauge. But we're going to give it a 3. So 4 for the Wave and 3 for the Multiforce. The next function that we're going to be looking at, because neither one of these have locking pliers or spring-loaded pliers, we're going to jump now to the main knife blades. The main knife blade on the Leatherman Wave is going to be a budget steel 420HC, whereas on the Multiforce it's going to be 8CR 13 MOV. Both of these blade steels are really right in the same class. Now, it's difficult to measure blade retention, sharpness retention, without long-term use. But from what I've tested them on and the stuff that I was using them for, both of them seem to hold up really, really well. I've used the Wave and a Surge for going on 20 years now, and I can tell you that the 420HC holds up just fine. You have to sharpen it depending on your usage. I have to sharpen mine, touch it up about once a month or so, and that's usually on the construction site. So while it's a budget steel, it does hold up fairly well. Now, it would be better, obviously, if we were in a 154 cm or higher grade steel. Both of these are going to fall kind of mid-range. I like the length on both of these blades, and they're pretty much right on par with one another. They're going to give you just over 2.5 inches of blade length, which I consider to be good. 2.5 inches and above in these standard duty or heavy duty multi-tool sizes, I think is a good length for a main knife blade. So we're going to end up giving each of these just a touch over the halfway point. I'm going to give both of these tools probably a 6 is where I think they should fall in at. 5 or 6, and you may see that a little differently, but we're rating the knife blades again from 1 to 10, and I think a 6 is a good spot for both of these knife blades. The next function that we're looking at is the serrated blades, and while these look very, very similar, there's some key differences here. First of all, the grind on the Wave starts way back at the back, and so as they taper very close, it has a lot more taper to it. So at the blade itself, it's very thin at the blade, whereas on the Multiforce, they start the grind profile about a halfway into the blade, and it's quite a bit thicker, noticeably thicker at the front. And I think that lends to why it performed not quite as good as what the Wave did. So I tested these on 5/8 inch polyblend rope, and the Wave came through that with flying colors. And I must say this, I've had this Wave since it came out a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago almost now, and the Wave has been tested many different times, and that blade is still very, very sharp. Where on the Multiforce, it got through that rope within a couple of strokes of cutting on it, but the cut wasn't that great. I'm going to give the Wave a 4. I think it did a really good job. And the Multiforce, I'm going to drop it down to a 3 because it was able to get through that rope. I did not like the cut on it, and it was clear that the Wave outperformed it in this area. Now, neither one of these tools has a cutting hook, so we're going to skip over that one. And the next thing we're looking at is package opening. Now, neither one of these tools has a dedicated package opener, but they both do have draw cut functionality at the tip of their serrated blade. And I use them to open up just a small package of nut drivers that I purchased for my, one of my screwdrivers. And they both did really well. Now they're not quite as controlled, obviously, as what a dedicated package opener is going to be, but neither one of them really had a problem getting through that hard plastic that you're going to find in clamshell packages of today. I don't think they were great, but I don't think they were bad either, and most people will use a knife to open up stuff like that anyway. I'm going to rate both of those at a 3 each. The next item that we're looking at is the filing capability. Now, both of these tools come with 3 different files. They have their crosscut combination metal and wood file. They both have edge files, and they both have diamond coated files. We'll start with the wood file. When using these, I was just checking them on wood, and I also did them on metal, and it was clear that the Wave outperformed the Multiforce. It was just glaringly obvious. The Wave has a much better profile on its main file. The Multiforce would do filing stuff on wood and metal, but it just did not feel like it was grabbing onto the material very well and doing a very good job. The Wave is not quite as good as what you're going to find in Victorinox's files. They have a really aggressive file, or even that of the Super Tool 300. That has a very, very good file. So for the file on the main file, I'm going to kind of rate those kind of, it's definitely going to be a win for the Wave, but we're going to do the file as an overall package. Now, I did the same thing on the edge files through wood, and it was clear that the Wave cut into that much, much, much better than the Multiforce did. But what was really the most disappointing part for me was in the diamond files. Now, the Wave was exceptional. I tested these on, I had to resharpen a drill bit, and that's high strength steel, and that's what I use mostly my diamond files for on the job site is I'll touch up sharpened blades out in the field without having to put them on a sharpener, and it does a fantastic job. Now, both of these performed decently well in that task. The Wave really well. The Multiforce did okay. It was brand new when I did this. This was the first thing that I tried the file on, and I noticed right away that I was losing some of the profile of the diamond on the Multiforce. It's like the diamond coating is not adhered properly, and I noticed that it was starting to strip off very, very quickly. In fact, on the edges, I can feel where it's just virtually gone. So the file on the Multiforce definitely needs some improvement. Overall, it's going to get a pretty poor grade. It's going to get a 2, and the Wave is going to get a 4. There are more aggressive files and multi-tools out there than the Wave, but the Wave as an overall package does a really, really outstanding job. So that's how I'm going to rate both of these, a 4 and a 2. The next thing that we're looking at is the saw, and is the wood saw. And the wood saw on the Wave is really, really good. In fact, I think Leatherman saws are probably the best out there on multi-tools. Some people will argue that the Swiss tools have a better file, or excuse me, a better saw. I don't believe that to be the case. I think they're very, very, very close, but I think that the Wave wins overall, or the Leatherman saws win overall in that department. Now, when I was testing these two against one another, both of them kind of were a little jagged at the start, just to get them started. But once I got into it, the Wave really outperformed the Multiforce considerably. And one thing that I'm going to note here is that the Multiforce saw actually bent on me. I don't know if I'll be able to pick this up that well on camera, but the Wave is nice and straight, where this one, when I was sawing with it, it hung up too much, and I ended up bending. I tried to bend it back. I just need to work on it a little bit more to get it straightened back out. Both of them cut very well. The Wave was definitely better. The Wave's going to get a little higher mark here. The Multiforce got through it. It was just, it didn't start as easy, and you could definitely tell that it wasn't as aggressive as the Wave. So the Wave's going to get a 4, and we're going to give the Multiforce a 3 for the saw cutting capability. The next function that we're looking at is the scissors, and the Multiforce really came out on top on this one. First and foremost, the scissors themselves were just more comfortable to use, especially when I got into some larger material. I cut through a variety of different things, but where the Wave really started to struggle is when I got into paracord and some small poly blend rope. It did not fare well cutting through those. Now, I got through both of them. The paracord was a little bit easier for it, but I had to kind of stretch it, give it some tension so that it would cut through a little better. Where the Multiforce was kind of the same, but it performed a lot better. It really did. It made a cleaner cut on that poly rope, and both of them did well through string and well through cloth and well through paper and just anything I put at them. But it's definitely clear that the Multiforce has overall better scissors. So we're going to give the scissors on the Multiforce. Now, if they were larger, I'd probably give it a little bit higher rating. I'm going to give it a 4, and we're going to give the Wave a 3, I think. It just wasn't. In fact, you know what? I think I'm going to drop the Wave down to a 2. It's kind of stretching it to put the Multiforce at a 4 too, so I think I'm going to drop them both down, as a matter of fact. I'm going to put the Wave as a 2 for its scissor capability, and the Multiforce is going to get a 3. The next thing that we're going to be looking at is the can opener and then the bottle opener. And on both of these tools, they're integrated in the same tool. So they double as both bottle and can opener. Now for the can opening capability, the Wave actually fared a lot better. And I'm going to try to highlight this. The Wave up at the very point there is ground down a little bit sharper than the Multiforce is. They leave it pretty blunted out there on the end. So for cutting through or using it as a can opener, the Wave really performed really well, and the Multiforce, it was a little harder to use. It did okay, but it's definitely clear that the Wave was better. So we're going to give the Wave a 4 for its can opener, and we're going to give the Multiforce a 3. Now, when it came to bottle opening, both of them are probably going to fall about mid-grade. They're probably both going to be a 3. The reason for that is because neither one of them offers a very large lip down here at the base to grip onto the edges of those bottle caps, and so you really have to position them just right to use them as bottle cap lifters. They're a little tedious, so both of these are going to fall at a 3 for me for its bottle opening capabilities. The next thing that we're going to be looking at is going to be a 1 to 10 rating, and that's going to be the driver capability of these two different multi-tools. And the Wave really came out a lot better in this department than the Multiforce did. A couple things to talk about here. The Multiforce has a full 1/4 inch drive. The difference or the problem is with this one is that it uses kind of a proprietary design in its bit. Because the bit itself is a ball detent and double-sided, finding replacements or finding accessories for this particular multi-tool, not going to be the easiest thing. Now, it does include the extension, which the Leatherman Wave does not. You have to purchase the extension and the bit kit separate for this multi-tool. It only comes with a standard combination number 1, number 2 Phillips, and a 3/16 flat driver on the opposite side. It also has a 1/4 inch driver and then a reversible micro driver. Where in the Multiforce, it comes with a number 1 Phillips and a 3/16 standard driver on one side, as well as the 1/4 inch driver as well, plus the extension. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the Wave is that in the bit kit, some of the smaller bits, they can, if you're trying to put too much pressure on them, they can have a tendency to twist on you. More so in your flat bits than your Torx and Hex and Posi and Phillips. But it must be noted that can happen, so it's something to be aware of. But the Wave gives you the ability to add on from Leatherman. You can add additional costs now, but you have the ability to add about 40 different screwdrivers to your capability if you choose to, plus an extension. Where in the Multiforce, you're really kind of limited to what you have here. You can try to put standard bits on them. The problem is because they use a ball detent, the bit itself does not stay in there very well and will constantly fall out on you. So that is something to keep in mind. Another thing that I was disappointed in with the Multiforce is the fact that instead of coming with a true number 2 Phillips, which is the most common screwdriver type or screwdriver head that they'll put on multi-tools because it's just everywhere. I was disappointed they put a number 1 Phillips in there instead of a number 2 Phillips. Now, both of them worked well. I tried them on a variety of different screws and a variety of different tasks. And when I tried them both, the larger flat drivers on some lag screws. When it came to the large lag screw, neither one of them was able to effectively remove or tighten that screw because of the fact that it was just a lot larger and they just couldn't handle it. Both of them were twisting on me, and so I backed off of them and just let it be. One thing to note is by doing that, the Wave came out without a scratch on it, where on the Multiforce, because I think the steel is a little bit softer there, I actually damaged the very edges of that screwdriver just a touch. Nothing excessive and nothing that's going to hinder it in the future, I don't believe, but it must be noted that it is a little bit softer. Overall, I think that the Multiforce, I like the idea that it has a full 1/4 inch driver. I do. What I don't care for is the fact that you cannot use just standard off-the-shelf drivers in it. I think maybe they would have been better off had they included that. Maybe made it so that you could use a standard driver, put one in the extension and put just a regular one in the tool itself, so you have two bits on you at all times, because it does come with the extension. That way you can interchange it for whatever bit you wanted to, and you would not have to worry about trying to locate a specialized bit for this. Also, the fact that they didn't add a number 2 Phillips was kind of disappointing. It really was. Now, both of these worked well. The Leatherman Wave combination bit worked well on both number 1 Phillips head, number 2 Phillips head, and surprisingly it even worked on number 3 Phillips head. Now the Multiforce did the same thing, but there was a lot of play in it because I'm trying to use a number 1 Phillips on a number 3, and it just did not handle that one very well. Overall, the Wave, I'm gonna give the Wave pretty high here, because it does have the ability to add on a lot of drivers that you can purchase from Leatherman. They're actually really solid. The 1/4" driver is really well done, and then it also includes a micro driver. So I think that the Wave is going to fall in about 8. And the Multiforce, if it would have had a number 2 Phillips instead of a number 1 Phillips, I think I would have rated it just a touch higher. But I think I'm going to give it, in fact, I'm going to backtrack a second. I think the Wave needs to fall down to about a 7 for its driver capability. The fact that it doesn't have 1/4", standard 1/4", should take away from it. So I'm going to give it a 7, and I'm going to give the Multiforce a 5 for its overall driver capability. And you may see that a little bit different too, but that's where I'm falling at, 7 and 5. The next item that we're looking at is going to be the Pry Tool, because neither one of these incorporate an awl, nor does it incorporate a chisel. So next on our list is Pry Tool. Now both of their 1/4" drivers double as Pry Tools. I didn't have a lot of stuff to test this on. All I did was open up a simple paint can. Both of them handled that without any challenge whatsoever, and 1/4" and larger is a good size category to have on there. So I think both of them, for the Pry Tool functionality, going to fall in about a 4. They both did really well, didn't have any flex in them whatsoever. Both handled that task extremely well. The next items are tweezers and toothpick, and then an all-purpose hook, none of which either one of these multi-tools has. So the next item on the list is going to be the ruler functionality. Now, both of these incorporate a ruler that's located on the inside of the handle. They're both the same length, 8 inches overall, or 19 centimeters. The Wave has a little bit better of a ruler because of the way they stamp it into the housing, where it feels like these are just kind of etched on there on the Multiforce. I'm not really going to take away any points for these because of that fact. Now, if they had a ruler on the outside that was, you could use it like a straight edge, like you can in like a Swiss tool, I would rate these a little higher. They're usable because they have decent length to them. So for measuring stuff like, I use mine for just measuring larger bolts and stuff of that nature. So they can be useful in a pinch. They're not really going to rate that high though. Probably going to give each one of these a 3. The next 2 items on the list are going to be personal care stuff. So the first one is going to be nail cleaning and a nail file. The beauty of it is both of these have diamond coated files, so they make very good nail files actually. In fact, my wife used to steal my multi-tools simply for the fact that she liked the diamond file to use on her nails. So they're excellent nail files, so both of them in that category are going to get a 5. For nail cleaning capability, they don't really have a tool that's dedicated for that, but both of the Eagle Claw design can opener, bottle opener combination tool actually work really, really well for that, because they don't have a sharp edge up on the front, so you're not kind of digging underneath your nail. It actually makes a fantastic nail cleaner. So I think that's going to get a 5 as well. I like them both for that. So 5 on each one of those. The last item on the list is a magnifying glass, and neither one of these tools will incorporate that. So we're going to move on to their overall ease of use. And a couple of things that I want to keep in mind here. First of all, let's talk about the pinch points that you get in a Wave. So if you are a longtime user of a Wave, you'll no doubt know that if you're grabbed onto something like in the pliers and it happens to slip off while you've got a lot of pressure on it, because of the way the knife blades are so close to one another, the knife and the file back or the saw back are so close to one another, you can pinch yourself with this tool. and it hurts very, very badly. You only have to do it once to know that you need to grip a little lower whenever you're gripping onto something very, very hard. Where in the Multiforce, because they use a little bit different design, where the knives and all the other outside implements will pivot from the other direction, no matter how hard you close it, you are not going to pinch yourself with it. So that is a plus in favor of the Multiforce. When I did the video on the Multiforce, that was something that I noted right away, and it's a design concept that I wish that they would incorporate into the Wave, because I think it's actually better than that of the Wave. Now, there are a couple of things in favor of the Wave when it comes to this, though. The first of which is, and this hasn't failed on me, but I definitely see it as a potential fail point on the Ozark Trail. So the back of the Wave, the way it locks into place, it's completely surrounded. So it has a U shape in there, and so it's grabbed on both sides. So when you're up against the back of the pliers, it's just not going to give. It's just, once it's there, and it's not going to break on you. Where in the Multiforce, they use this bent piece that is incorporated as part of the inner channel, but it is not reinforced on the side. So as it comes across, it will engage with the back of the pliers, and that may be a little tough to see. It's right here. So as it engages, it creates a stop against the back of the pliers. The problem is if this ever, for any reason, gets bent, these pliers will actually collapse on you. It can damage them. I can see that as a potential, and I've already had a couple people tell me that has happened to them. So that is one thing that is in favor of the Wave. Another thing to note is when using the screwdriver functionality, and I like to kind of extend the screwdriver sometimes, because the Wave is rounded here, I'm able to actually set my palm against it and rotate the tool in order to, tighten in this fastener. It's a little bit more stubborn. That's the reason why you find your regular screwdrivers are going to have a real contoured edge on the back side most of the time, so that for that feature. Where on the Multiforce, because everything is pivoted on the opposite side, they have all these kind of sharp edges or rough edges. It doesn't really cut your hand, but it's uncomfortable, to say the least. So that's another thing in favor of the Wave. Also, the Wave is a little bit thinner in profile than the Multiforce. It lends it to be a little bit more comfortable in the hand in most cases for most tasks. Now, they do have some implements that operate from the outside, so for that they're going to get a little bit higher rating. If they had all outside accessible implements, it would be even better. Another thing that we want to note, one last thing, is that the Ozark Trail seems to have a little better pivot on the pliers, where the Wave over time will loosen, but it's kind of stiff. And so I'm going to give a little bit back to the Multiforce for that. Overall, I think they're going to kind of balance out. And so their overall ease of use, because some of the tools are on the interior, some on the exterior, and a couple of those other nuanced differences that I mentioned, I'm going to give each of these a 3 rating for their overall ease of use. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the overall ergonomics of these multi-tools. And the Wave is actually going to fare just a touch better here for a couple different reasons. First of all, it's a little bit thinner in profile. So for someone who doesn't have large hands like I do, the Multiforce is going to be a little bit more uncomfortable because it's a little bit thicker. Also, the fact that the pocket clip is non-removable. Well, you can, but you have to physically remove it. It's not a quick removable pocket clip, and so that can cause a little bit of hot spot when you're using the plier functionality. Now, it's not bad. And I don't want to give you the impression that it's a terrible hot spot. It's actually kind of smooth, but you'll definitely notice that it's there. Just adds to the overall thickness, and so the Wave gets a couple of points there. Both of these multi-tools in their closed positions. So if you're using your knife blades or your saw blade or your file, both of them have sharper edges. They're not to the point where they're going to cut you, but they are a little uncomfortable. So that's going to take away from the ergonomics on both of these. They're very comfortable to use for the contoured edges on the Wave in the plier position, and it's actually a little bit better in the closed position here than the Multiforce is. So the Wave might, I want to almost give the Wave a little bit higher grade than the Ergonomics, but I think I'm gonna, I think I am actually. I think I'm gonna give the Wave a 3 in its overall ergonomics, and I'm gonna give the Multiforce a 2. And the reason I'm gonna drop the Multiforce back a little bit is because you'll notice in the Wave has very nice rounded contoured edges in the pliers, but the way the Multiforce is built, it's kind of built like a Charge somewhat, where they have 2 or 3 separate metal pieces that make up the handle body. So they'll have an outer scale on both sides, and then they have the inner channel. Well, that creates some sharp edges along the inside. Now, it's not overbearing, but you definitely notice that they're there. They're not totally uncomfortable, but the advantage is definitely going to go to the Wave here. So we're going to give the Wave a 3, and we're going to give the Multiforce a 2. The next item on the list is rust resistance, and this is important to a lot of people. Now, I've used the Wave, I've used Leatherman products for a number of years, and I have a lot in my collection. I will note that if you do not use them regularly, or if you mistreat them, you're definitely going to have instances where you're going to be able to get, it's going to build up a surface rust. This is one area that Victorinox really shines over Leatherman, for the fact that their steel uses a lot more chromium in it, and so it has a lot more rust resistance. The Wave usually has, or the Leatherman products usually have, like, better knife blades, but they sacrifice that for the harder steel of losing some of that chromium content. This one's kind of hard to quantify, though, because of the fact that, first of all, these tools, I haven't had either one very long. I do know what the Leatherman will do over time. I'm going to give its rust resistance about a 3. It's kind of middle of the road. It's not as if it's going to flash rust on you, but like I said, if it's not taken care of, it will have the tendency to rust. The Multiforce, I haven't really spent enough time with it, but by looking at the composition and just the overall feel, and I work with steels all the time, I feel like they're really on par with one another when it comes to this. Now, it's impossible to tell unless we were to go through some really extensive testing to find out what their true rust resistance is. I'm just going to have to guess at this one, and I'm going to put them both at the middle of the road at a 3. The next item that we're talking about is the warranty, and Leatherman is going to rank really high here. Some people might argue the fact that I'm going to give it a 5 because I have a lot of experience with the Leatherman warranty, and the Leatherman is a 25-year, no questions asked, send it in and they'll take care of you kind of warranty. Now, Victorinox has a lifetime warranty, which I can understand the argument where the Leatherman should not have as good of a rating as something like when we go to rate this against a Victorinox. I feel differently about it, though, because Leatherman really takes care of their customers, and the problem with us here in the U.S. is the Victorinox warranty, I don't think is going to be as easy or as a quick turnaround for us here in the States. So for that reason, I'm definitely going to give the warranty on the Leatherman Wave a 5. Now, for the Multiforce, it comes with what's called a 5-year limited warranty. It is not an unlimited warranty. I don't have any experience with that. The fact that it's only a 5-year warranty is going to take some serious points off of it. I'm going to put the warranty in there. I like the fact that they at least give you somewhat of a warranty. I wish it was longer than 5 years. I'm going to give it a 2. The Wave is definitely going to get a 5, and the Multiforce will get a 2 for the warranty. The last 2 items are going to be deductions from each multi-tool. So what I'm going to do here is, for the retail price, for every $10 of value, it's going to deduct 1 point in overall value from each of the multi-tools. In the case of the Wave, it now retails for $99.95, I believe it is. So we're going to call that 100. It's going to take off 10 points. For the Multiforce, it comes in at $37.74. We're going to round that up to 40, so it's going to lose 4 points. Now, for the weight, the Wave comes in at 8.4 ounces, so we're going to round that up to 9. It's going to lose 9 points for its overall weight. And the Multiforce comes in at 9.84 ounces, and so we're going to deduct 10 points overall for its overall weight. Well, it's time to recap, and this is how I've got it graded out. So for the needle nose, we have 3 and 4, Wave on the right, Multiforce on the left. Main pliers, 4 apiece. Wire cutting capability, Ozark Trail was a little bit better than the Wave, so it gets a 4 to a 3. Hardwire cutting capability, both of them were 4. Neither have cable cutting. Wire crimping, a little bit better on the Multiforce than it was on the Wave. It was really easy to do on the, a little bit tougher on the Wave. Wire stripping, the Wave was a little bit better than the Multiforce. Neither one with locking, neither one with spring-loaded pliers. Next is the main knife blades, rating 1 to 10, and both of them we gave them a 6. The serrated blade was definitely better on the Wave, neither with the cutting hook. Package opening was the same. Filing capability was much better on the Wave. Saw cutting capability was better on the Wave as well. Where the Ozark Trail really came in on top was on the scissors, though. They have much better scissors. The can opener was a little better on the Wave because it's a little bit sharper, a little easier to use. Bottle opening, neither one of them is that great at it. The driver capability on the Wave exceeds that of the Multiforce, hands down. On the Awl, neither have it, or the Chisel, neither have it. Pry Tool, they both grade out at about 4, and neither one has tweezers. Then if we flip around, we have toothpick, which neither has. All-purpose hook, neither has. Both of the rulers were rating in at 3. Nail cleaning, nail file, both of them get a 5. No magnifying glasses. Each of them for ease of use at a 3. The ergonomics on the Wave, a little bit better than that of the Multiforce in my opinion, so it gets a 3 to a 2. Rust resistance is going to come in at the same. The warranty is a big factor. The Wave definitely has a better warranty, so it gets a 5 to a 2. And deductions for both their retail price and for their overall weight. And our final conclusions are that the Wave comes in with the total score of 71, and the Ozark Trail Multiforce gets a 66. I think the Ozark Trail really competes well with the Leatherman Wave. The fact that the Wave is so much, if you're only interested in, in just price, then I think that you might consider the Ozark Trail Multiforce. If you don't feel like, the need to spend that kind of money on a multi-tool, a $100 bill. Some people ask me, why would I ever spend that much money on a multi-tool? Well, it depends. If you are like me and you use yours every single day, that $100 quickly evaporates away from the overall quality of the tool you get. In many ways, the Wave is better than the Multiforce. In a couple of ways, the Multiforce is actually better than the Wave, which is actually kind of surprising. I think that the Wave is an outstanding multi-tool, but I think that the Ozark Trail really gives it a run for its money. Well, my name is Ben, and you've been watching my comparison of the Leatherman Wave Plus against the Ozark Trail Multiforce. Hope you liked it. If you did, hit the thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.